Every couple of months, we'll get a question from folks, and the question is, can I rely on Social Security? I've got 5 or 10 years, or I've just started receiving Social Security and I'm not confident that it's going to be around for my entire retirement. And a lot of this is driven by news media articles that love to talk about Social Security being bankrupt by 2033 or 2034. And I get it, these headlines are scary, but they're really not telling you the full story. So talking about Social Security benefits that are received right now, if you file for Social Security, you get your first check. About 80% of that check is funded from current payroll taxes. This is that pay-as-you-go system, the reference that you'll sometimes hear when you talk about Social Security. So 80 cents to the dollar is pretty well accounted for just from folks who are currently working. That extra 20%, when you hear these headlines about Social Security going bankrupt, that's what they're referring to. This extra 20 cents of the dollar is coming from the Social Security Trust Fund, which is a reserve that was built up over time. And put very simply, Social Security is withdrawing from that reserve quicker than it can replenish it. So what does this really mean? In a worst case scenario, if Congress does nothing, which is a reasonably safe bet in our current political environment, that Social Security Trust Fund would be depleted by 2034. Now, I think personally it's pretty unlikely that Congress, love them or hate them, is going to let that happen because Social Security is a very, very politically popular government program with voters. So when we talk about this, understand that this is not a foregone conclusion. It simply requires an act of Congress to improve the financial situation of the program. And there's a couple of different ways this can be done. So under current law, in 2025, you only pay Social Security taxes, that's 6.2% as an employee, on your first $176,100 of income. So your $176,101, you do not pay Social Security taxes on that additional income. So a pretty popular proposal that we've heard floated around for a number of years now has been, let's get rid of that cap or let's increase it dramatically. What is this really? This is an increase in tax on higher earners. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And if you think about politics, it's generally pretty popular to tax high income folks. So I think that is, in my research, probably going to be a large part of shoring up Social Security. Another potential option is to simply increase the tax rate, increase the percentage of Social Security taxes on everyone. So instead of 6.2, it might go to 7.5 or 8%. Now, this has some knock-on effects because remember, your employer is also paying, under current law, 6.2%. So this is a tax increase on all consumers and employers. Probably a little bit less popular. What also could be done is a combination of the two. Remember, you could do both of these things, a small increase in taxes, a probably larger, but maybe not increasing all of your wages to that Social Security cap. So you've got options there. Social Security Administration does reports on these on a pretty regular basis that shows you if you were to take one or a combination of these options, how long could you fund Social Security for? And these are publicly available. These are not anything that is some kind of secret sauce or anything that the government doesn't report. Now, I have heard some murmurings about potentially increasing the retirement age for younger employees, and this has been done in the past. Social Security used to be paid at 62. Now it went to 65. Now it's 67 for current retirees is your full retirement age when you receive your full benefits. I think personally this is less likely, and the reason for that is the Social Security costs are front-loaded. So in the next 5, 10, 15 years is where you're going to see those higher Social Security payments as baby boomers retire. So if you think about it, increasing the retirement age for somebody who's going to retire in 30 years, that doesn't really move the needle that much. So when we hear these kind of concerns from folks, what I like to do is to run two different scenarios in our financial planning software. We'll show you what your retirement would look like if your full Social Security benefits were paid as expected. But then we can also run a different scenario out that says, hey, what if your Social Security benefits were cut by 20%? What if that Social Security trust fund is allowed to completely deplete and everyone's benefits take a 20% haircut? And we can very easily show you both of those different scenarios, give you the pros and the cons, and then we'll leave it up to you to decide how much of that do you want to factor in. And of course, if you have questions, we'll give you guidance also. One of the interesting quirks of the U.S. tax code is the IRS will give you preferential tax treatment if you agree to earmark dollars for certain life events. And the one that everyone's familiar with is your 401k. Dollars earmarked for retirement get preferential tax treatment than other unearmarked dollars. But that's not the only option. If you're willing to set aside money specifically for college expenses, you can receive similar, or even better in some cases, tax treatment by using what's called a 529 plan. Now, realistically, most of the clients we work with, their kids are already in college or have already graduated. So the 529 is not necessarily for their children, but for their grandchildren or even great-grandchildren. Now, when my wife and I found out we were having our first child, right after we decided on her name, even before she was born, one of the first things we did is we set up a 529 plan for her. And the result of that was when my daughter was born, she already had money invested in the stock market, earmarked